I thought I'd start today talking about love because it's the most powerful force in the known universe. And I know it's quite popular to ridicule this, flower power and love is the answer. Lots of songs being written about it, and I think there's been a misinterpretation. So I thought I would talk about it from my experience and from my position of knowing. It's not something I think, it's something I know. It's not a theory, it's something I have actually experienced. I've experienced it both ways. I've experienced a lot of love, and I've seen the healing power of love. And again, love as a frequency, not love as an emotion, but love as a frequency, love as a place that we have to find. I've also experienced a lot of hate and anger and seen the opposite effect. So I thought I'd talk today from a place of knowing. I'm still a person that's seeking. I'm not someone that's mastered this. I'm just somebody that's working on it. And I've had fantastic results with it, but I thought I would talk about what love is and how all the different Bibles talk about love, and about the power of what love is. This is one of those things they talk about. There's a big difference between intellectual understanding or cognition and actually knowing, actually physically knowing. I know this because I've experienced it. I've experienced it at a high level. I've used love to solve financial problems. I've used love to solve health problems. I've used love to solve relationship problems. I've used love to solve problems of violence. It's very easy, especially for a person like me who has had a physical background, to revert back to the physical, back to violence, back to anger. I can win a few arguments with that. I can scare people with that, but it's very short-lived, and the problem with that is it leaves those feelings in you. The feelings of hate and anger and vitriol, they're in you, and if they're in you, they're blocking your natural flow. If you're consumed by feelings of anger and hate and dislike and all the rest of it, if we're consumed by those, it drops us down to a lower frequency. It's very difficult to connect to anything divine when we've got our antenna pointing towards a lower frequency or a lower echelon. So this is a choice we make, something Swedenborg talked about. If you get a chance to read Swedenborg's books on heaven and hell, he talks a lot about the fact that from his epiphanies, from his moments of clarity, from his spiritual divine instruction, he's been told, and I've learnt myself, that heaven and hell is a choice. It's a choice that we make. It's not necessarily somewhere we go, it's somewhere we are. I mean, I could take you onto the World Wide Web now and show you heavenly places, and I could show you the 9 circles of hell. I've got friends around me at the moment and people I love who are in heaven, in heavenly places, and I've got other friends who are in one of the 9 circles of hell. They're in very dark places because they're filled with anger, they're filled with self-pity, they're filled with vitriol, they're filled with greed, they're filled with envy. And if you look at the representations of these people, on social media, and how they live their lives, the people that are around them, you see the representation, you see them cloistered together. And I understand that myself because I've been there. When I was a violent person, that I was surrounded by violence. Everything in my life was violent. When I started to choose a higher frequency, a higher game, I started to surround myself by love, by people that wanted to be creative, people that wanted to build, people that wanted to help, people that wanted to serve. It's very powerful. It's a really powerful place to be. And again, this isn't a judgment. I'm not in any position to judge anybody. I've done too many things in my life wrong to judge anybody, but I can judge myself. I can look at myself and say, there is a macrocosm of love available to me at this moment, a macrocosm of love. And at some point, somebody is going to ask me, whether it's in this life or the next, and whether it's God or whether it's my higher self, someone is going to say, did you use the macrocosm of love that we gave you? Did you access it? Did you use it? And I can stand there and I can stand there all day long and say I did, but if I didn't, it will be on my skin. Even my skin will speak a testimony against me. Everything I think, everything I say, everything I do, this is what my experience tells me. excuse me, is recorded in me. I'm the recorder. It's on me, it's in me. I can't escape from it. So love is something, if you look at the New Testament, Jesus talks about, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all good things will come to you. I know when you talk about Jesus, or when you talk about the Bible, or when you talk about God, people often recoil. So if you are recoiling, you need to look at that. You need to look at why you're recoiling. If you're recoiling, it's just because you've got the wrong information. I'm not talking about dogma. I'm talking about knowledge. I'm not talking about saints. I'm talking about great philosophers, people that understood the way of the world. And I'm not talking about, recruiting people into a system. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in all the different Bibles. I'm interested in knowledge, the knowledge that's right in front of me. And the best stuff I've found has been in the Bibles, in the Gita, in the Quran, in the Tao Te Ching, in the Dhammapada, in the Torah, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, etc. They're all out there. The Guru Granth Sahib. These people, if you look at the Vedas, for instance, it's 5,000 years old. It's written by very wise, very expanded people. So just look at it as philosophy. Don't look at it as religious. Religion, in the true sense, really just means to realign. That's what it means. In Old Greek, religion means to realign. You to realign to your potential. Man to man, man to God. Or man to his divine source, man to his bank account, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. So think about what love is. It's a frequency. So seek the kingdom of love. So when we talk about the New Testament, seek the kingdom of God. So seek, the first line is to seek. So we need to look for it. It's actually in plain sight. It's right in front of us, but we have to get through a barrier of old conditioning. We have to get through old beliefs. We have to get through fears. We have to get through our doubts. But it's there. So we've got to seek that. There is a macrocosm of love, but we need to seek it. So God represents love. So we think, rather than thinking seeking the kingdom of God, seek the kingdom of love. Look for the kingdom of love. Where it says, seek the kingdom of love and his righteousness. Righteousness is interpreted as the right path, or the moral path, or the ethical path. It's simple. Again, it's not dogmatic. It's not stuck to any one faith. All the Bibles say the same thing. Follow a righteous path. So find the frequency of love. The kingdom is a frequency, and a righteous path, a moral, ethical path, and everything you want will come. The way I seek the kingdom of love is to do things I love, and I also seek the kingdom of love by recognizing what science tells me and what religion tells me, that everything is connected. We are all connected. If I hate my brother, and there's a wonderful line in the Holy Quran which says, man is the brother of man, whether he likes it or not. So I try to look at people and think, it's not intelligent to attack other people when I only know I'm attacking myself. When everything's connected, everything rebounds. So if I attack my brother, if I attack my friend, if I attack my uncle, if I attack someone on the internet, if I hate somebody on the television, if I've got all this vitriol, then I'm just attacking myself. And again, it probably sounds, maybe that doesn't sound very powerful, but from my experience, it's hugely powerful. You're talking to a man that was very violent. I was in thousands of violent situations that I created through my thinking. I created it. And every time I was violent to somebody, the violence grew. So I went from being in 1 or 2 scuffles to being in fights every single night, and to experiencing violence sometimes 3 or 4 times in a night, every night, to the point where there was people around me dying. Not that I killed anybody, but that there were people dying. And it was a hugely violent environment. So I created a lot of negative profit by being extremely negative. When I realized it was me doing it, I reversed it. And I started to seek the kingdom of love. I started to look for love. When I found love, I started to be loving to everybody. I started to do my very best to think, say and do kindness to other people. I knew there was a macrocosm I could draw from, but I knew that I'd got a lot of conditioning that I've got to get past to get to that. So that's been my job. Only one job. one and only job. I know it sounds complicated when we start talking about all the different Bibles, all the different philosophers, all the different, methods, but actually there's only one thing we need to do. We just need to seek love. And if we seek love, our illnesses will dissolve, because nothing below love can exist if we can get it in our body. So look, find the things we love to do, be around the people we love to be around. Obviously we've got to start from the inside out, so we've got to love ourselves. There's parts of us inside, part of what Geoff called the crowd in us, that we don't love, that we're angry with, and we see projections of them all around us. So when we look at the television and we see someone we don't like, or when we hear the name of somebody that we don't like, we're getting a corresponding representation of something in us that we don't like. This is what my experience tells me. This is what all the different kind of tomes concur with. So it's about me, first of all, finding the parts of me. And again, you say love yourself and everybody goes, oh fucking hell, here we go again. It sounds very weak. It's the most difficult thing you will ever do. Self-help, the internal jihad, going inside, is the most difficult thing you'll ever do. Why do people laugh at it? Because they're afraid of it. They're afraid to go inside. It's much easier to go out and project and attack the greedy bankers, the fat politicians, or the kind of violent people in the world, the fundamentalists, etc., etc. There's plenty of people to tilt your lance at. What we need to recognise is that we're the only one we need to convert, and we do that through love. Just one thing. There's only one thing to remember: love, and we need to nurture love. There's a great thing in the Holy Quran, at the end of the Holy Quran, where it talks about, did we not expand thee thy breast? The love center is in the heart. The heart chakra is where we cultivate and expand love. We expand that part of us. And what the Holy Quran is saying is, we give you that. We give you the opportunity to do that. We expanded your breast. We showed you how to access love. There'll be incidents in your life every single day where you will, well, maybe not every day, but there will be incidents where you will feel love. I had a great email from a guy this week, and he said he listened to one of the podcasts and he said something really beautiful. He said, I've forgotten how to be nice. I've forgotten what it feels like to love. He said, I used to look at my daughter and just think, this is the most special person in the world. And he said a really lovely thing as well. He said, and at that time I really liked myself. I liked who I was. And I looked at my daughter and thought, this is the most splendid specimen that was ever born. This was a man that loved his daughter. This is a man that loved himself. And over time, with circumstances and life, he's told me that he's fallen out of love with himself. He's lost that feeling. He forgot that he's special. He forgot that he's got access to a macrocosm of love. He's forgotten that. And how many of us forget that? How many of us allow anger and hate and greed and envy and self-pity to come into our bodies and suddenly look around and forget that we're actually living in this paradise? It's all around us. We have so much access to that. So this is about expanding love. This is about practicing expanding love. And the first thing to do if we want to expand love is we've got to stop feeding hate. We've got to stop feeding anger. We've got to stop feeding the greed, and we've got to stop feeding the pornographic sides. Because obviously when we watch the news every day, the news teaches us to be afraid. I don't think it means to do that. But I don't think the news conspires to do that. But the news and the newspapers and the general kind of information that's coming to us on a daily basis, mostly free, teaches us to be afraid. When we're afraid, that becomes a harbouring pot for hate and anger and greed, because they all come from that same place. When we're afraid, we will attack. When we're afraid, we have a scarcity mentality. When we're afraid, we will judge our brother. When we're afraid, we will feel envious. When we're afraid, we're in a very low sedimental frequency. And again, if you're not sure, because a lot of people are in denial, if you're not sure, where you are and how you are, it's just about really being honest with yourself. Sometimes it's just good to look at the things you're doing on a daily basis. Have a look at your own, your own, what do they call it? Your own social media input? What's your social, have a look at it. Have a look at it objectively. Have a look at that and imagine you're going to be judged on that. What does it say? What does your social media stuff say? What does your general day-to-day talk say about you? When you're lying on your own, and you know, one of the things I always say to people is, I'm not perfect, but I know who I am. I know who my authentic self is. And when I'm sitting alone at night in my meditation and my prayer, I know who I am. I know how strong I am. I know how weak I am. I know what I've got to work on. I know what you know, what's strong and I can expand. I know about my connection to the divine force. And if I go on to any of my social media stuff, which there's not a lot about, I don't do a massive amount of that, I will find love. If I look back into my earlier stuff, I see a lot of hate, a lot of anger, you know, a lot of threat, because I was insecure and scared. So this is about dissolving the parts of you that aren't coming from a place of love, and expanding the parts of you that are coming from a place of love. One of the simple exercises for doing that, for cultivating love, is to start with a spark. This is what Custer Martyr talked about. Start with the spark, fan the spark until it becomes a flame. Fan the flame until it becomes a blaze, and fan the blaze until it becomes an inferno of love. Again, I know the word's jarring to quite a lot of people. You talk about love and we've been conditioned to think it's a weak force. The truth is undeniably right in front of you. Love is the force we're looking for. And if you can cultivate that in your body, everything else you want in your life will come from that place. But it's got to be cultivated. You've got to work on it like an Olympian, knowing it isn't enough, knowing it's just the first level. And be the proof of it. Don't take my word for anything. Be the proof of it. I make this work in the real world. I live a blessed life because of it. So we first of all start with a spark. So find something that you love, something that you feel you can love, or something that brings love to you instantly. It's easy for me because I've got a lot of people around me that love me. So I normally start with one of my grandkids, because they are kind of unadulterated love. They're all babies, and when I think about them, I feel love instantly in my heart. That's what I feel. It's a feeling of bliss, because they're so joyful. So I get that feeling. I start with that feeling. Then I fan that feeling by adding other people. I had my brother, I had my wife, I'll add my mum, I'll add my dad, and I'll bring them in, and I'll bring in those golden moments when I could feel that love from them. When my brother was dying, I felt unconditional love. When I go and see my mum, I feel unconditional love. When I see my son, I feel unconditional love. When I'm with my daughters, I feel it. So I bring all those bodies into my mind. I focus them deep in the center of my chest, and I expand them and expand them and expand them until this feeling of love fills my whole body. That's what I do. And then if I've got somebody in my life that's challenging or difficult, once that feeling is expanded, I bring that person. I mean, you don't even have to bring them into the feeling, but I bring them into the feeling, and it dissolves the conflict. So it's got to work pragmatically. It's got to work out there. It's no good, you know, it's no good just doing it as a nice exercise. It's got to have real effects. But it does, because the inside and the outside are the same. The macrocosm and the microcosm are the same, as within, as without. So if we heal on the inside, the things outside will miraculously look after themselves. So this is just a short podcast to just say you have access to a macrocosm of love. Are you doing something with it? It is there. There's no doubt about that. I have no doubt in my mind at all. No doubt. Absolute and unequivocal. But we've got to get the spark of love in us. We've got to fan it. We've got to get a flame. We've got to get a blaze. We've got to get an inferno. And all we think is about love. So then when we do our work, there's love in our work. When we talk to people, there's love in what we do. So again, diminish the parts. Stop feeding the parts that are hateful, and start to expand the parts where you feel love. And start, like I said, start local. Start with the things you can feel immediately and build it into your life every day. It might mean not watching quite so much news. It might mean not watching quite so much, reading the tabloids, because they're full of very aggressive stories. And keep saying to yourself, is what I'm doing coming from a place of love? Be honest with yourself. Is it coming from a place of love? If it's not, do not do it. Because everything you do to anybody else, you do to yourself. Everything you think, everything you say, everything you do about to other people, you do to yourself. Everything's joined. There can be no doubt about that. So why don't you have a look at that? This is what I'm working on at the moment. It's what I'll do on my sovereignty course. Very powerful, beautiful stuff.